This video is intended to describe a lightblade talisman named the Alpha and the Omega, which is a rather exotic, high-yield variant of the tried and true transmutation platform in lightblade talisman format. Joining me today will be my whimsical stick figure chakra map for various reference stimulation cue points, which I'll be describing throughout the video. And without further ado, I will get right into the transmutation scaffolding. This entire blade band seen like so is that of the transmutation ratio, going into this lateral band grounded through, to this auxiliary band connecting to this lateral band, as well as on the other side, this blade band going up here, to this more exotic apex band, which would be the fundamental light blade scaffolding. So before I discuss the crystalline composition, I will go ahead and discuss the aspect of the intended restructured design of recirculating energy, of running the current of the containment through this entire blade band sequence into this lateral band grounded through, going through the entirety of the structure all the way to the apex band, to which would vaguely resemble a figure 8 for the closed loop circuit, which would be basically the governing of the excess energy of this device in a closed loop reactive circuit for perpetual energetic recirculation momentum. So starting off with what is deemed to be the transmutation ratio, would be starting off with hematite, then smoky quartz. Hematite is a fantastic iron-based mineral that is exceedingly successful for grounding all excess radial energies through the root chakra into the earth stars and into the earth meridian matrix for reprocessing. The quintessential ground or high-frequency energy will be denoted to hematite. Subcapacitated by smoky quartz, a very complementary frequency of, once again, a strong grounding influence to pull all stray radial energies through the chakra column into the root, into the earth stars, meridian matrix for reprocessing. So the two together are what I deem the transmutation ratio, to basically have the same pathway element to take all excess energy and firmly ground it through the root into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing, to thereby transmute negativity to positivity by constant energetic dialysis into the earth for reprocessing, which would be the foundation scaffolding, as well as this being a very exotic high-yield variety of the typical transmutation scaffolding platform. These other frequencies yet to be mentioned of high vibratory yield would have a very strong foundational governing of the excess energy to encourage all these other exotic variables to ground into the earth to, of course, make the magic real. Is a prerogative of this device, like all their light tech, of course, but this aspect also firmly provides a very powerful insulation to the energy field from any kind of negative radial bombardments of energy to encourage rapid grounding into the earth reprocessing at a very quick rate is the prerogative of this exotic variety of the transmutation platform. So once again, the hematite smoke quartz is staggered like so all the way through the primary blade band into this lateral band up the side right here to this lateral band, as well as this band as well, where this leather will eventually be installed. And the apex band is a little more of exotic variety, starting off with clear quartz to be the quintessential neutral programmable subcapacitator of the apex band, a very neutral ambient frequency carrier, going into ruby, the quintessential root chakra red ray stimulant mineral kingdom that is quite legendary and very well believed in the morphic field of humanity for that matter. So the power of ruby is the unsurpassed root chakra stimulation, in conjunction with clear quartz, then its perfect antithesis cousin, blue sapphire, right here, to be the quintessential wind elemental 5th and 6th chakra stimulant, of perfect balance with the ruby of the same family. So that right there will be the containment of the figure 8 recirculating the scaffolding, which will of course work to govern the excess flow of the other energies in one terminated circuit to redirect, and once again, what vaguely resembles a figure 8 of recirculated energy. So that right there will be just the blade band scaffolding discussed. Next, I'll be discussing the exotic components of the blade face. Starting off on this side right here is a lovely piece of authentic turquoise, a stone that is quite literally the favorite of millions for thousands of years for a very good reason. The esoteric notarization of turquoise is quite literally world famous, which I will omit all the subtleties to keep this video condensed and consolidated. But the aspect of turquoise makes for a quintessential 5th chakra stimulant, that of earth, fire, water, and wind, or basically the terrestrial 4 elements of the medicine wheel in one focus. Hence, it's a truly notarized ancient grandfather ally of First Nation shamanism, would be that of turquoise, which is very, very nice wholeness frequency and very, very advantageous for having full pranic stimulation through the entire chakra column as well. Then behind that, at the very apex of the blade face, is quite the special crystal of fulgurite. This is quite literally the power of lightning striking the sand. So fulgurite, just like turquoise, was a well-utilized First Nation shamanic spirit tool that was utilized to intensify their energy and prayers back to Creator to intensify their magic or their medicine. So that right there is literally the power of lightning terminated to a closed-loop reactive circuit that is quite powerful for activating the entire chakra column in unison, but literally the power of lightning being mimicked and harnessed and redirected through the auric field to intensify one's intentions as well as the general vibratory output of the frequency of very high yield, that of harnessing the power of lightning in a bottle, basically. So that makes for a very, very powerful accelerant of energies in all capacities from top to bottom, but luckily, of course, with the high yield transmutation, it has plenty of contingencies to get the most out of lightning without being too unruly on the system of literally the power of lightning. So it's very well governed in this apparatus. Then next on this side of the blade face would be the lovely seraphinite. Seraphinite, named after the seraphim archangels, is a lovely green ray crystal seen right here. That is a fantastic, obviously, heart chakra stimulant based on the green ray connotation, yet it has a full light body activation capacity as well, and is quite well utilized in my life's work for the distinct purpose of being very utilitarian for dramatic healing. So the aspect of the seraphinite bringing the seraphim realm into the frequency range is also the quintessential stimulant to the chakra column from bottom to top, everything in between, to dismantle any patterns of dis-ease through the entire chakra column that be outmodeled patterns manifesting as an ailment. So it is a quintessential master healer in this age that I utilize for practical application quite religiously for this purpose. So even a small dose of this, just like everything else in one closed-loop circuit, goes a long way for the vibrational compound interest of the entire device, with all terminated to a common ground of copper, brass, and silver to recirculate the energy. So obviously, I'll say that right now, but any aspect of this dissertation of these individual crystals mentioned, of course, all are terminated to one primary main vein, if you would, that would make vibrational compound interest much like the organs of this consciousness-assisted technology entity before me. The next, to really, of course, encourage that further seraphic connection would be prehnite. Prehnite is a fantastic green ray, 3rd and 4th chakra stimulant of both water and earth frequencies, and is also, in my humble opinion, the quintessential Raphael the Archangel attunement analog frequency generator, which is quite advantageous for any true light worker in the aspect of healing modalities, is to have a natural frequency alignment to the Raphael Archangel Clohan of the Green Ray Force is quite advantageous. And by itself, the crystalline structure is very, very powerful for dismantling any patterns of disease as well. So naturally, the two in conjunction of seraphite and prehnite are indeed intentional to get the most out of that clean seraphic alignment, particularly that of the dominance of the Raphael force in focus. Then on this side of the blade face is quite the exotic composition, starting off with the lovely legendary Libyan gold tektite. Libyan gold tektite is an absolutely amazing golden ray crystal of perhaps unsurpassed potency in the mineral kingdom, in my humble opinion. And it was actually utilized by the pharaohs of old to be carved into scarab beetles into the finer their breastplates. So that is quite the legendary connotation, naturally. And Libyan gold tektite is a quintessential cardinal fire energy stimulant that stimulates the sacrum and solar plexus to a very high degree, yet the golden ray of illumination is so comprehensive that it actually stimulates the entire chakra column in unison as well. So you can think of that being more of a fire energy with storm overtones of full stimulation being the intensification of the golden ray of illumination that hence was utilized by the pharaohs of old, the Magi god kings of the time, for a good reason. And also I consider that a tremendous gold ray dharmic accelerant to put one in touch with their true nature and manifestation of that nature into reality, as well as quite the joyful jovial, enthusiasm-generating frequency in its own right. And as a fun little term, I also refer to it as goldavite, to be a gold ray cousin to the legendary moldavite seen right here, which will be gotten to eventually. But that aspect also, being gold tektite, is tremendously enhancing for one's fortification of will, as well as being another psychic protection agent to keep one in their sovereign power. If it was good enough for the pharaohs, it's probably good enough for anyone else, to put it lightly, as a little comical way commentary right there. Okay, so next up, above the Libyan gold tektite would be Tibetan black quartz. This is a lovely specimen from Tibet, obviously, that actually has black inclusions in the structure that comes from the region of the world that has perhaps the most unbroken lineage of dedicated spiritual alignment discipline in the entire region of the earth. So naturally, that crystal comes from that area of unsurpassed thousands of years of meditation and spiritual focus. Obviously, we'll leave an indelible mark on the region where it comes from. And so this guy right here is a fantastic ohm source energy resonant frequency, as well as being a massive light body stimulant for the entire chakra column as well. From the earth stars, everything through to the soul star and beyond. So it makes for a very powerful two-way massive activation through the lower chakras and the higher chakras simultaneously, which is quite advantageous in light body activation. So this crystal is utilized quite often in the trinity of the star argonite, the Tibetan black quartz, as well as the seraphinite, to be the quintessential trinity of vibratory healing capacity that all work together to make a massive full light body stimulation, also light body healing at the same time. So the Tibetan black quartz also makes for a fantastic clearing of any patterns of dis-ease once again through the entire chakra column that is not in alignment resonance with one's highest self manifest. So it's quintessential dharmic accelerant as well. I'll go ahead and discuss this specimen to keep in line with the context of the thought of star argonite. Star argonite is a calcium-based full light body stimulant as well that stimulates the entire chakra column from bottom to top and everything in between, and just like seraphinite and Tibetan black quartz, works very quickly but gently to clear any patterns of dis-ease found on the atomical level of the structure of the chakra column. So the three together, like I mentioned, is the holy trinity, as far as I'm concerned, of vibrational healing capacity in one closed superactive circuit. So next would be the legendary moldavite, very well concealed so it does not run away on its travels with its wielder right here. Moldavite is the quintessential green ray storm elemental dharmic accelerant of the mineral kingdom. Quite legendary these days, as well as quite in vogue through spiritual seekers of that nature. And moldavite is quite the powerful powerhouse that has become, like I mentioned, quite infamous and famous on social media platforms such as TikTok and whatnot because of its sheer, raw, magical, tangible potency. So moldavite, being such a powerful green ray dharmic accelerant, connects one aspect to source creation so quickly it can be rather violent to the false self matrix that of what, of course, would be in division of their true nature and connection to creation. So a little dose of that goes a very long way to increase synchronicities and magic and self-realization of one's true dharmic connection to creation. And of course, the aspect too of moldavite being utilized in light tech is even a small dose goes a very long way in a closed reactive circuit, as well as having many contingencies to ground out all the excess energy of this entire yield is a prerogative to mitigate the timeline whiplash from massive spiritual inductions. So that's the aspect also of utilizing moldavite in this platform. Though it may be in a very ambitious crystal, it has plenty of buffers and redirectors and grounders to get the most out of it while mitigating, once again, the timeline whiplash of rapid spiritual growth. So that would be the entire blade face mentioned on both sides, which I do save the selenite and the kyanites for very last for the capstone of the dissertation. So I'll be moving on to the section where this lovely black leather will be installed eventually, like so, which I'll describe right now. So the aspect of the black leather is far more than aesthetic. Actually, it works as an insulation device to insulate the excess energy of this entire subroutine in here to condense the focus of the energy between the two blade bands more efficiently. So by, of course, being a subtle way to prevent energy leakages from the area, up here, it also works to focus the energy through this blade band as well as this apex band simultaneously. And also B, it's a color therapy resonance of black being a very grounded protection color to be very complementary to such a powerful transmutation of energy to make an etheric shield, if you would. As well as C, it works to protect all these subtle stones seen here, which we mentioned momentarily, to, of course, ensure that when they're being wielded by the wielder, they do not have any loose points and they do not run off while in service. And also D, last, kind of least though, it also is a nice aesthetic completion to the construct before us. So I guess that's the aspect of the leather, but I, of course, digress, is that it's far more than just aesthetics. So this section, which should technically be the hood, has quite the complex subroutine, which we describe right now. Starting right here is ruby and zoisite with calcite in the matrix. So zoisite is a green ray crystal of great heart-mind coherence notoriety, but luckily, synergistically and serendipitously, this crystal actually is grown with red ruby, like mentioned up here, the quintessential root chakra zest for life stimulant of great notoriety through the history of humanity. So the aspect of having the impeccable heart-mind coherence stimulation with the zest for life makes for a truly dynamic trinity stimulation of the root energy as well as the heart-mind coherence, which I consider an absolute prerogative of spiritual mastery, is to have an impeccable heart-mind coherence. Basically puts you in touch with the quantum knowledge of creation in theory and make it very much accessible to the conscious self. So a little dose of that is intended to, of course, help with that background frequency. Then next to that right there will be Himalayan golden azeztulite, just like the Tibetan black quartz comes from Tibet as well, the Himalayas, and is a very famous third and fourth chakra stimulant, as well as a very powerful higher chakra crown stimulant of gold white light source emanation creation. So obviously in metaphysical purposes, when you get the gold ray source alignment to the heart of creation, that is pretty self-evidently advantageous, which will be mentioned further up here in complementary fashion. Then next to that will be shungite. Shungite is a carbon-based black ray crystal quite in vogue in this timeline and being notarized for mitigating 5G and unnatural wavelength distortions that affect the human condition these days, from cell phone towers, things of that nature. So once again, even a small dose of that transmutation purification, much like the entire blade band scaffolding, goes a very long way to ensure the frequency pitch is maintaining a purified ratio. Then a further transmutation agent right here would be amber. Amber, though not technically a mineral, has been long praised for metaphysical application for transmuting negativity into positivity through a much more solar capacity of being a third chakra stimulant. So of course, just like the implication of the transmutation ratio of smoky quartz, it takes negativity, turns into positivity in that regard. As well as being a classic stone of abundance for that regard as well. To obviously feel good, you feel more abundant things happen. How you feel emanates, affects, manifests reality. Then over here is black tektite. Black tektite is a fantastic product of nickel iron meteorite impacting the sand, carrying that extraterrestrial cosmic jolt into creation, which, of course, in a crystalline structure is almost like space obsidian, because the heat and pressure from the meteoric impact carries that jolt of energy, which is quite stimulating, quite powerful. But luckily, it's a extraterrestrial black ray crystal, which means that the stimulation of the vibratory induction is based on the Earth stars up. So it's a fantastic scaffolding, foundational, vibrational increaser, if you would, that would be very advantageous for full light body activation, but once again, a black ray ground up foundational enhancer crystal. So that's quite an essential component, most light tech as well, for that just general vibratory threshold increase from, thank goodness, once again, from the Earth stars up. Then right next to that would be sugilite. Sugilite is quite the famous and rather hard to acquire crystal these days, unfortunately, but thank goodness the Force has a way of providing me what I need for various constructs. And so, sugilite is a lovely violet ray, 6th, 7th, 8th, all the non-physical chakras back to one's Godhead stimulant, which also makes for a very powerful divine induction transmutation ratio to encourage high-frequency emanations through the auric field. As well as it is reported to be the quintessential Michael the Archangel analog frequency alignment, which is very advantageous to have the Archangel of he who is like God, be a very powerful alignment frequency to the sujilite to bring through the entire induction of the construct. So that makes for a very, very powerful purification agent. And that would be everything that would be denoted to be the hood of this device. At the very, very top of the core right here is another golden white source energy stimulant named golden healer quartz seen right there. Golden healer quartz is another fantastic third and fourth, as well as source alignment energy induction. So obviously, like I mentioned for golden azastolite, that implication in a metaphysical endeavor of a crystalline structure having a direct source attunement goes a very long way. So that'd be most of the scaffolding discussed thus far. Okay. So the very core of this device is actually wood from my favorite vortice in Sedona, Arizona. Between Bell Rock and Courthouse Mesa, it basically is almost this tree that grows in a natural spiral indicative of its vortice-grown nature, actually is a juniper. And this little tree right here is between the 2 points of the vortices of Bell Rock and Courthouse Mesa, which almost basically resides inside a ginormous tuning fork. So that is a very, very powerful wood range from Sedona, Arizona, to be the core of this device. And last but not least, I'll be describing the aspect of the selenites seen right here, which have been adhered to the core of this device as well. So selenite by itself is an absolutely fantastic master healer crystal by being a very powerful wind elemental, 6th, 7th, 8th, and all the non-physical chakras back to one's godhead. So that makes for a quintessential, basically, way to burn off debris between one's connection to who they are in true connection to creation through one's highest self. So also with that aspect, with that high frequency induction, it also works as a very powerful divine-oriented transmutation to burn off stagnant energies through the entire auric field from top to bottom. By having that really distinct, clean shot to divine forces, basically, it makes a very powerful stagnation removal of energy from the auric field. So by itself, it can be considered quite the quintessential master healer crystal stone, but where they always shine in any given spirit tool is this lovely fact. So upon the time of this 22 minutes and 22 second dissertation thus far, the entire composition of this crystal, of this entire design, can also be very complementary with the selenite seen right here. So the aspect of the selenite also can take this entire closed-loop reactive frequency pitch. It can purify all of these crystals in a closed-loop circuit. It can amplify or intensify all these crystals, and perhaps most importantly, bring harmonization and equilibrium to this entire frequency pitch band. So that this triumphant trifecta dissertation is why I always save this for last, to be a comprehensive capstone. So once again, you take the aspect of this entire exotic composition. They are all being self-purified through the closed-loop circuit of the selenite. Then they're being amplified or intensified, and once again, most importantly, they're being harmonized to bring equilibrium to the entire vibratory output pitch, which is the foundations of what I consider to be a truly successful spirit tool. Alrighty, then right here would be the black kyanites, oftentimes saved for last as well in these dissertations. Black kyanite, and kyanites for that matter, are the most rapid transfers of energy in the auric field, basically the mineral kingdom, and they transfer energy so quickly, they actually basically are unable to maintain stagnant energy, which means the charge sequence of this complete frequency is so rapid that stagnant energy cannot basically impede its energy vibratory output. So the black kyanite next to the selenite plays a critical role to be a very encouraging rapid transfer of black ray energy into the earth at a very constant flux. So you can think of that being a very powerful surge protector contingency to ensure the entire frequency pitch is directing the excess energy of this entire device in a closed-loop circuit, primarily through the entirety of the root chakra, most importantly into the earth stars, into the earth for reprocessing, which would be considered another layer of etheric Teflon to ensure the high frequency is constantly at flux, grounding into the earth for rapid transmutation as quick as absolutely possible to build that bridge of light under any kind of vibrational strain to ensure the contact patch is grounding through as quick as possible. So that's the aspect of why black kyanite was utilized exclusively in this device, to encourage the very much the in-the-body integration of this high-frequency condensed overture to ground the energy into the earth to make it real, and to, of course, to be another insulation contingency to ensure the frequency of this being wielded in place is grounding through as quick as possible to ensure a conducive ascension containment field. So obviously this is a talisman designed to be worn on the person with the necklace hanging up right here, which is designed, of course, to be a very exotic rendition, but primarily to, of course, be a very powerful transmutation agent of the Alpha and the Omega designation spectrum at the recipient's request to ensure the frequency contact patch is very dynamic, but yet very shielding and very insulating to the auric field as a whole. So, that would be the Alpha and the Omega. Well, 1,000 blessings, and may the Force be with us all.